Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm your host, Levi Rickert. We have a special guest today, a friend of mine, and it's the former president of the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Ness. And he is running for Congress. This is his second run, and hopefully he'll be successful this time. And he's running in Arizona's 2nd Congressional District. This is his second run, and he's here today to talk about his campaign and how he plans to win the congressional seat in November 2026. So welcome back to Native Bidaské, President Ness. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Levi, and it's great to be back on the show. And we have a different game plan this time around. Of course, you know that there's a different political atmosphere throughout the country now, and I think folks are wanting something different than.
One thing that I was impressed with during the last run, and we know it's the presidential race, but you actually, to my knowledge, were one of the most successful Native American congressional candidates ever in terms of raising money. I mean, you raised a whole lot of money, and that may not be 100% true with like maybe Deb Haaland outraised you, but maybe Mary Patello up in Alaska. But for a poor guy who grew up like you did from Navajo, you did really well. I mean, I was really proud of you. So, how's the fundraising going this time? Well,
we just announced a few weeks ago, and we already raised over $550,000, and these are grassroots dollars. These are donors that have been supporting us. Of course, we had a great run the last election. This time we got a head start. Same team, just a different strategy, and of course, I think folks are seeing these disastrous policies and laws coming out of Washington, D.C. that it's going to affect hardworking people in this country and in this state.
So you think that's maybe what has changed, is the climate has changed to the point where what's happening in the United States right now is quite clearly very frightening as far as I'm concerned, from just even the military being on the streets of Washington, D.C. And so much of it to me may be optics, because he's out there by the national monuments, and there's very little crime out at those national monuments. And a couple of days ago, they reported that a military vehicle hit an SUV there on Capitol Hill. So I don't think Congress is going to put up with that very long. So there's a lot of optics going on, and tell me this: why in the 2nd Congressional District do you think that the climate's right for change?
Well, Levi, this was a pretty tough decision. Folks wanted us to come home to the Navajo Nation and run for president again. And my wife and family decided that, hey, we got to continue to fight and warrior up, as I keep saying, and push back on all these negative policies that are directly impacting the citizens of this country. And my opponent, Eli Crane, cast a deciding vote to add more than $3 trillion to the national debt, and they have no plan to repay any of the money. And they call themselves fiscal conservatives. American taxpayers will have to pay $350 billion in extra interest each year forever. And my opponent has damaged America's credit rating by his vote and threatening our future. And so there's a lot of frustrations. And I think, Levi, when we go to the store, we can see how it's impacting the tariffs, these disastrous bills, goods and services are going up. The same item that you have purchased maybe last year is a lot more expensive, or maybe even shrinking as well. And it's directly impacting the folks and hardworking Americans in this country. And as I've been talking to many of the folks throughout the country, there is a lot of frustration. But we can't let up. We have to continue the fight. And we as indigenous peoples, we as Americans have that fighting spirit, and I'm very looking forward to the midterms in next year.
Yeah, and President Ness, you were president of the Navajo Nation during the pandemic, and as I recall, was over 1,300 Navajo people died as a result, and it was at one point actually the epicenter, and certainly epicenter for Indian country. And you got high marks because you were out you were in the front lines handing out masks, and we did a lot of coverage. And how did all that help shape who you are as a leader today in terms of how, obviously, if you become a congressman, you serve more than just Native people, more than just Navajo. But how did that shape you? What lessons did you learn from COVID that you'll be able to carry to Capitol Hill?
Well, I grew up on the Navajo Nation without running water or electricity, and I think that helped me work hard, go to college, university, and come back, and utilizing that education and of course the knowledge from home, putting it together, able to work together with leaders throughout the country, and not just Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. As you know, I had a vice president who was a Republican, and so during the COVID, we had to work with the Trump administration, bringing in resources into the Navajo Nation, and then we'll also work with the Biden administration. So it's really facilitating folks together to help the constituents, and I will continue to do that as a congressman. Bringing people together has been a strength for me, and it's not about who voted for me or giving back to those that only voted for me, but to represent everybody. And that's been a success, I think, especially during the time of the pandemic, where we were able to bring in resources to help our constituents.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that many people fail to realize with our elected tribal leaders is that as head of sovereign nations, you deal with governors, you deal with U.S. senators, you deal with congressmen, state lawmakers, and on and on. And Navajo is a little different because you're in basically 3 states, so you're dealing with three different governors, 6 senators, U.S. senators, and multiple Congress people, members of Congress. So how will that help you? I mean, you have good working relationship with those elected leaders, as I recall.
Right. This election here, we started about a month ago. And on day one, usually elected leaders don't do this. They don't endorse a candidate until after the primary. But because of the relationships that I have, I got endorsements from our senators here in Arizona, Senator Mark Kelly and Senator Ruben Gallego, and AG Chris Mays, and in New Mexico, Melanie Stansberry and Teresa Ledger Fernandez, and many others. And so over the 20 years of public service, we developed a network and developed partnerships and friends and working together for our constituents, our voters. And I know that our leaders have seen that we can work together to help out our people. And sometimes, folks across the aisle or even my opponent would say, we're spending way too much money. But there are promises made, and we pay taxes. And of course, we want some of those tax dollars to come back into our communities to help improve the quality of life, get better roads, get better infrastructure. We got growing communities. They need access to clean water. And my opponent voted for that big, bad, ugly bill, which now will cut Medicaid. And in Arizona, and this is what I want to tell the folks in Arizona, the Medicaid is access. Sometimes people in Arizona don't equate Medicaid and access together, but it's access. 1 out of 3 in this district rely on Medicaid and access. It may go away. And also 5 rural healthcare facilities will close down here in Arizona, and 3 of them are in this district: Page, Winslow, and Globe. And we need someone that knows the issues, that reads the bill. My opponent probably didn't read almost that 1,000-page bill, and now finding out what's in it until after it got signed into law. So we need folks that live in this district. My opponent doesn't even live in this district, and people that know the issues. And I grew up in this district. I was born in this district. I grew up in this district, and I'm still here, ready to fight for all of Arizona and this Arizona 2nd Congressional District.
Yeah. President, I want to talk to you about something that's more of a nationwide, and you're running as a Democrat. It's been said that the Democrats have a difficult time with their messaging, and that the Republicans seem to have a better way of conveying messages. And I'll say this as a sidebar, and we at Native News Online, we don't try to approach it from a Democratic, Republican, or even independent viewpoint, but more on the indigenous side. And we have a slogan now since January 1, warrior journalism, defending tribal sovereignty. For us, it's about defending tribal sovereignty, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or in between. But how, as a candidate, will you work on making sure that the right message is presented to the voters, and I have this theory: a lot of people just don't pay attention, and then they just vote parties. They don't really know what's in it. So how can you bring to focus some of the things you talked about, what was in that big, ugly bill? What's your game plan for that?
A lot of it is just going into the communities. You got a lot of lawmakers out there that are afraid to do town halls, and they don't want to get that tough love from our constituents. But you know what? It is needed, because there's so much frustration. In Indian country and probably all over the world here, that in order for balance to occur, in Navajo we call hajo, is that we allow people to express their frustration, because it helps them get that negativity out. For us that are running for office, we got to have tough skin, and we got to go into the communities and listen to what is important to our constituents. Not going into a town hall telling the constituents what is best for them. It's the other way around, and that's how it should be. I've done that throughout my whole career. I'm still doing that right now, going into the communities and listening from them on the issues that are important to them. And I think that's what's you remember the time when elected officials go into town halls and listen, and don't say much, but listen, and take that information back to Washington. And I'm vying to be the first Native American to be elected from the state of Arizona to the U.S. House of Representatives, and yet they haven't heard a voice like ours. And that's what I would do, get that information from our voters and our people here, and make sure that the folks in Washington, D.C. and their representatives all across the country hear what is important.
Yeah, and I think that, of course, I came out and spent some time with you, I think the day before the election, and we went to 4 different communities on Navajo, and you are highly, highly respected. The people who were in the audience were very much in favor, and you pulled some really great votes out of Navajo Nation. How do you relate to the non-natives, the Caucasians, maybe even Hispanics in the district, that they know that you're going to be a congressman for them? You're not. You would be, as you mentioned, the first elected member of Congress from Indian country ever, and first Native American. But how can you connect with non-native people so that they know that they can get your representation in a real fair way?
Right. I mean, what I have done with the team that surround me, we have fought for water, our fair share of clean drinking water, working for our families. Today, we need more elderly care facilities. We need affordable childcare facilities, bringing in health infrastructure. We were able to build a few more hospitals, clinics on the Navajo Nation. And right now, people are feeling it in the wallets. And of course, Congress has the ability to raise that awareness. You know, this Congress right now, the bill that was ran through Congress and signed into law, the big, bad, ugly bill, gave billionaires tax breaks at the expense of working class, hardworking people in this country. And so, you know, I will continue to fight because that's universal. No matter if you're a Native American, non-Native, Republican, independent, a man or a woman, we all know that water is important. Our families are important. Our health is important. Infrastructure is important. And I'll continue to do that at a larger scale. And it doesn't matter if people voted for me. I'm not just going to advocate for them. It's going to be everyone in the district, because there needs to be someone in this district that will stand up to what's happening in this country with all these disastrous policies, and also fight to bring resources back into our communities. And as you know, Levi, I have a track record of doing that, and I'll continue to do that as your congressman.
And some of us know the differences between you and Eli Crane, the current congressman. But can you just tell us ideologically how do you differ? I mean, it's quite drastic from my viewpoint, but tell our viewers how you differ from Eli Crane.
Well, first of all, I live in the district. I was born here, grew up here. I'm not going anywhere. My family lineage goes back a very long time here in Arizona. And I've been in public service for over 20 years and developed a network. I've testified before Congress so many times, advocating at the state level as well, working with the federal agencies. Those agency offices are still open. The doors are still open for us. So again, you just, once elected, you know, we'll hit the ground running. And sometimes you don't have to get a bill through Congress to help your constituents. It could be working with the federal agencies to streamline policies. See, I've worked that, and I have a unique perspective because being an executive of a tribe, you know the barriers that are there on trust land, and that means any other federal lands too, because there are so many federal lands in the state of Arizona, so much red tape, bureaucracy. Streamlining those processes would help communities such as Flagstaff, where it's surrounded by federal lands. You know, in order to get infrastructure through those federal lands, you need to be able to know what processes are in place and what processes need to be changed in those federal agencies. And so there is a lot of difference here, you know. And I've also been able to bring back billions of dollars of resources through the federal government, and those are promises made and tax monies that have, you know, helped improve the quality of life for the Navajo people, and I could say to help Indian country as a whole. And we've been a great partner. We, you know, indigenous peoples have contributed great things to this country. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, we honored our, or just last week, we honored our Navajo code talkers, and I have a picture of one right here. And you know, utilizing our language to help win battles and help win World War II. You know, we also need to continue to educate the citizens of this country about the great contributions of indigenous peoples.
And I think we already mentioned there's like 20% Native Americans in the congressional district. And refresh my memory, are there 14 tribes? I think it is.
Well, a little bit over 20% in this district are Native Americans. 22 tribes in Arizona, 14 of them are in this district. And this district is one of the largest in the country. It's 60% of the state of Arizona.
Wow. So tell me this. What's your working relationship with the other tribes right now? Are you going out campaigning there, or good reception, or still too early?
Yeah, I mean, we still have to pay the bills. We have a consulting firm that we have. We've been working with some of the tribes, not just here in Arizona, but in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and California, and other places. You know, we 20 years of public service. We have a lot of information we can help out with, and you know, some tribes have reached out to us after we left the Navajo Nation to help. And so our heart is always to help people. And you know, with the change in the administration, you know, we're hopeful that things will change and Congress will wake up as well to the needs of hardworking Americans.
Hey, this is really off topic, but what do you think about this gerrymandering that took place over in Texas? And now Governor Newsom is carrying it over into California. On principle, I guess most of us are against the gerrymandering. However, you do have to fight fire with fire sometimes. So I'd like to hear your opinion.
Well, you know, I think the Republicans, the MAGA part of the party is concerned about the midterms, and they should be. These disastrous policies and laws that are coming out of Congress and out of the White House, their ratings are very low. And in order for them to stay in control, you know, they have to do things like what's happening in Texas. And if that happens in Texas, as you said, Levi, you know, the gloves come off. The doors open for other states to do the same. And you know, here in Arizona, we have a redistricting commission, independent redistricting commission. So does California. Have to change the Constitution, change their laws in order for them to change up some of these congressional districts. But you know, there is a lot of frustration out there from both parties. I think more so from the Democratic Party, because I think there's a notion of, well, why aren't Democrats fighting? Why aren't they standing up for the people? And you know, Gavin Newsom is doing that, and I see that happening. and it's encouraging. But of course, we all have to come back to, I'll be teaching a class in college here come next week, and one of the things that I like to emphasize is getting back to some sort of civil discourse. Remember when we used to have civil discourse in this country? To agree to disagree and not fight, not shout, not yell at town hall meetings, but just to be able to have a conversation about what is important to everybody. And I think that's what's needed. And if we can come back to civil discourse in this country, people won't get hurt, and this country wouldn't be divided. And hopefully, a voice like mine in Congress would help, bridge that divide and give some thoughts about the indigenous perspective. Of course, this country was founded on democratic values when the folks that came across the country observed native governance, right? And now it's embedded in the U.S. Government and in the U.S. Constitution, and not many people know that.
That's true.
But we gotta continue to educate, re-educate citizens of the foundation of this great democracy, United States of America, and of course to highlight its diversity as well.
Yeah, you allude to the Benjamin Franklin, and I think it was Thomas Paine went up and borrowed from the Iroquois Confederacy some of the tenets of how the United States was formed. And hey, we're going to celebrate the 250th anniversary next July 4th, and President Trump has the White House, and we've done some reporting on this. The White House has directed the Smithsonian Institution, which actually oversees and runs the museum, the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. in New York. And so I wrote an editorial about the sanitation of, they want to sanitize history. They don't want any negative to be said during the 250th anniversary. What are your thoughts about that? How should we see history? You mentioned you're going to be teaching classes. What should we be teaching people right now about history, and how can we put it to good use to form a more perfect union, as the some of the documents say?
Well, I think we all, especially in Indian country, we share the challenges of what we've gone through. Not to demean anybody, but to magnify the resilience of a people. And in any history, that's the same. And we cannot push it aside, because that's what makes this country awesome. Many nationalities, many group, of course, I said the melting pot here makes us stronger. And, that is what we need to share, and not to shy away from fighting for to have our educational system keep teaching the diversity of this country. Yeah, it may anger some people, but at the end of the day, it tells us that we're still here and we're still one people, Americans, and we shouldn't shy away from that. And I want to also challenge the viewers here to visit our website, jonathannez.com. Join our fight. Join us to make sure that we have an opportunity as Indigenous people to share our contributions and continue to keep it in our schools, so that our younger generations can see that, hey, they won't give up because of our ancestors not giving up, getting us to this point. We are a strong people, and we're a strong nation because of that.
And we've been talking to Jonathan Ness, the former president of the Navajo Nation. He is running for Congress for the Arizona 2nd congressional seat. And The election will be in November 2026, so there's more time. We'll bring you back on, President Ness, and thank you so much for coming to Native Bidaské today.
All right. Thank you, Levi. Have a good day.
You as well. And to our viewers, come back next week. We'll have another special guest to talk about those making news and leading change in Indian country. And as I like to tell you, elders take care of those young ones, and young ones take care of those elders. We're all in this together, and we will look forward to helping to make Indian country stronger and stronger. Chi Miigwech. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us. If you value our warrior journalism for Indian country, please consider supporting our work by scanning the QR code or visiting the link below. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and sign up for our free daily newsletter.